Hello! Many of you will remember that video I uploaded not long ago talking exclusively about Baki himself and why I think he's one of the shonen protagonists with the best and most organic/realistic character development. And for those who have not yet seen it, I invite you to click on the annotation above to the right or go to the channel to check. But don't worry, you don't need to watch that video to understand this one. I just think it's quite interesting before explaining Baki Hanma's mentality and philosophy to remember everything he went through before getting to where he is. Going from just being a strong boy to becoming something we can only describe as a terrifying little monster, Baki is the epitome of the saying, poison always comes in small bottles because he is deadly but so small. Anyway, the point is that today I want to talk about Baki's philosophy, that way of thinking and mentality of the ogre's son that has led him to this day fighting for the podium of the strongest creature on the face of the earth alongside his father Yujiro Hanma. Without further context to give, let's begin. The personality changes that Baki had as the work progressed were not a coincidence but were psychological adaptations that Baki himself had to adopt in order to continue progressing as a fighter and as a future successor of achievement, which is what Yujiro really wants. And it's quite evident that what Yujiro is trying to do with Baki is not to create a worthy rival as many believe, but Yujiro is creating the perfect successor who would even be capable of surpassing him. But this is already material for a theory video. The point is that in this manga, we are shown some very important values that other shonen style don't tell you. Let me explain. In other shonen, what is sarcastically called the shark mentality prevails. That is that belief that you can be the best at whatever. Nothing matters besides your effort. And I believe that it's true that effort will get you to places you could only dream of, but it's not always that easy. There are factors like the genetic factor which you can't control. There's always another side to everything. Sometimes to achieve what you so desire in your life, you will have to make sacrifices. The greater your ambition, the greater the losses, the risk, and the dark moments in your life. And sometimes a simple, your dream or me hurts more than thousands of workouts or thousands of hours of work. And this is where the game comes in. How much are you willing to give? While in other animes, the protagonist always ends up being the best because he is the one who tries the hardest, the kindest, the friendliest, and the good-natured one who never gives up. In Baki, this does not happen. Almost quite the opposite. This is reflected in the extreme change from the histrionic, hyperactive, and reckless Baki at the beginning compared to the current cold and methodical Baki. This manga has a way of dealing with the pursuit of dreams and goals that I think is magnificent and probably the best I've ever seen in my life. Jack Hanma, Baki's brother, is just another example of everything I'm talking about, only with a few nuances that greatly differentiate both cases and which only serve to provide even more great visual representation about effort and self-improvement, showing a success story Baki and a failure story Jack. Both gave it their all, were willing to do anything, especially Jack, who except for killing his brother, I think he is willing to do anything in this world just to beat Yujiro. The difference between these two is that Baki did listen to those who were wiser than him, did observe, did learn, understood how he had to proceed to continue improving. He didn't keep doing exactly the same thing as always, hoping that the results would be different like Jack did. Because if a method isn't working for you, why do you keep doing it? Do you want more? You will have to do more, and sometimes more means different, and this is where Baki's mindset comes in. But before that, I would like to mention the two biggest reasons why I think this work deals so well with the topic of personal fulfillment, especially in the sports field. But it can be extrapolated to almost everything. The first is the issue of genetics, how we are born to a greater or lesser extent condition to be good or mediocre at something. This is easier to see when you take a look at the entire cast of characters, unlike for example Dragon Ball or Naruto or even One Piece, where most characters stagnate, stop training or improving, and it would seem they are patiently waiting for the protagonist or member of the protagonist group to improve in order to unleash a terrible defeat on them. Anyway, more and more seinen in Baki, this does not occur. Everyone, and I mean everyone, trains day by day tirelessly, always looking to improve and be stronger, except maybe Pickle because he simply doesn't even know how to add up. It's not the same. Doppo Orochi now as the one we first saw, just like Katsumi is not the same as we first saw him to the one we have now. Just like the first Retsu is not the same as we have now because he is... Well, you guys already understand me, but without the right genetics or the nearly suicidal methods to improve the abhorrent level at which most of the characters in this manga are already, there's no way to climb up the top 10 of the most powerful characters. And the second aspect that I love is how it draws the line between being good at something and being the best at something. Because being good at something usually just involves putting in the necessary effort and having a clear understanding of your goals. It also depends on your personal concept of being good at something. On the other hand, being the best involves much more. It involves risking and losing more than you could have imagined in search of something that might be impossible to achieve. And you will never know until you achieve it or bust in the attempt. So now for sure I want to talk about Baki Hanma's mindset. Even though it sounds ridiculous, it needs to be clear that Baki doesn't want to be the strongest in the world, and that's totally true, it's not a theory. He has no interest in that title, all he wants is to defeat Yujiro, and in Baki's words, I don't care if my father is the strongest or weakest man in the world. If he were the weakest, I'd be happy to be the second strongest man in the world. This has to be clarified to understand that Baki is after Yujiro. The fact that Yujiro is so powerful is just a factor that may or may not be there. Therefore, Baki has an extremely ambitious goal to overcome, but not of his own will, but because his goal mandatorily includes, at least currently, being the strongest creature on the face of the earth. For this, Baki had to fall and learn over and over again. Baki has not had as many teachers as such, in fact, he has not had any. Ironically, his own father is the closest thing to a teacher for him. Yujiro usually gives Baki disguised advice or pushes him to break his limits, often using terrible methods that physically and emotionally destroy him, such as killing the beast of Yasha, among many other examples. Initially, Baki was a reckless, aggressive, and naive young boy who thought this approach would help him reach Yujiro. After all, didn't a strong person behave that way? That is, a boastful attitude, self-confident, and always ready to fight. This was what Baki thought, but the only thing this personality hid was a huge insecurity and a deep fear of the ogre, not to mention the emotional deficiencies he had as a result of his mother's foxy nature. After the death of his mother, Baki began a journey. One to become stronger, yes, but also to get to know himself better, to understand more about the world, to find a way to overcome the insurmountable. He thought there was a way. The idea was to enter that underground fighting tournament where some of the most powerful and dangerous fighters alive were registered. But Baki, although he was interested in the title for what it represented, the real reason he signed up for that tournament was in hopes of figuring out how to beat Yujiro. That's why we see Baki learning all the important and most effective techniques from the amazing rivals he comes across throughout the tournament. That's how he defeated Jack. Baki understood the importance of learning, the importance of observation, and above all, that a proper mindset is an indispensable piece in the game that will lead him to fulfill his mission. After all this, Baki had to reflect. What is the way to defeat a huge and invincible dragon that destroys everything in its path? The easy answer would be to be another dragon exactly the same or even bigger and more evil. The other would be to become an honorable and brave knight who was capable of penetrating the powerful scales of the dragon and defeating it. I think at this point, and taking into account everything discussed earlier, there should be no doubt which of these two options Yujiro wanted for Baki and which one Baki ultimately ended up taking. The path to becoming an indomitable knight is not easy, and Baki has not finished his journey until he proves capable of defeating Yujiro one-on-one. It doesn't have to be a direct fight between the two, simply prove to the ogre that he is now the representative of the Hanma lineage. Baki has been willing to give it his all, no matter what. He has been on the brink of death several times. He has had to fight against people he did not want to hurt. He has had to overcome hellish superhuman training since he was 13 years old, and even had to accept that Kozue might not want to be with him anymore because Baki has a very clear life goal, and if she could not accept it and wanted to throw herself into the arms of the first fool who complimented her on a park bench or in a cafe, that was her problem, not his. Baki has grown a lot, and his current attitude is not a coincidence, but it is also not 100% due to his evolution. But in part, his current personality is another fundamental piece that Baki has been forging exactly like his muscles or his moves to one day fulfill his dream and finally defeat Yujiro Hama. Hey everyone, since you all are incredibly fit, I wanted to let you know that I recently launched a new channel focused on fitness, sports, nutrition, and personal motivation. It's not a joke, I'm serious about this new venture. So I invite you to go and check out the channel if you like gym and physical exercise focused content, and if you like what you see, then you can also give it a sub and hang out there. I promise you won't be disappointed, especially with the Ogre Project series, which is basically the path I'm going to take to go from being a fat, dirty Lolero piggy to becoming an epic Olympus god with a body sculpted by the very gods themselves. Anyway, I'll see you there. Did you like the video? Remember to subscribe and follow me on social media like Twitter and Twitch, where I live stream almost daily. Also, don't forget to follow me on my secondary channel, Belsetilter, where I upload videos reacting to anime or reading manga that I've watched or read live. Thank you and see you next time.